you on the Chidambaram temple, where do you stand? Because this has been an issue for a while with this temple. It's done the rounds of the Supreme Court. There's a Supreme Court judgment that protects the rights of the Dikshitars. But it's back in focus this time again, and it's the HRNC department, the state, that has now taken up the cudgel, saying there is gross mismanagement. How do you read the situation, Sai?
So, if there is a textbook instance of what is wrong with state control of Hindu religious institutions, despite a clear verdict from the Supreme Court, the highest constitutional court of the land, in the context of a denominational institution that enjoys rights under Article 26, which is perhaps the strongest of rights that a religious institution can get under the Constitution, this is that example. Okay, what can a politically motivated, an anti-Hindu, anti-Brahmin government do, despite the verdict of the Supreme Court? If there is a clear-cut example that people want to look at, here's the case study with the DMK in power in the Tamil Nadu state. So let me explain this. This fight started way back in the in the pre-constitution period. Okay, with Shirur Mutt from South Canada, of what is known as Karnataka today, and Chidambaram Temple, jointly challenging the 1927 HRC legislation of the then Madras presidency. Okay, because notifications were issued for takeover of these institutions. Okay, and this was done in so this was with respect to the 1927 notification. Subsequently, in 1950, our constitution comes into force. By 1951, a new legislation has come about, okay, which is the previous HRC legislation prior to the one which is currently in force, which came into existence in 1959. Okay, that legislation is challenged before the Supreme Court. And in that particular judgment, which is known as the famous Shirur Mutt judgment of the Supreme Court, the court categorically holds what are the metes and bounds and circumstances in which the state can step into the picture, but never to take over any institution. You can just take it over for very limited purposes to set the house in order and get out of the picture. Okay, that is when the saga began for this particular temple. But then comes the 1959 Act, which reproduces in sum and substance the very same provisions which were struck down by the Supreme Court in 1951. And under that legislation, executive officers are appointed one way or the other without any reason. And in most instances, the Tamil Nadu government, regardless of who has been in power, has never given clear reasons as to why a particular temple needs to be taken over, which is among the first reasons required or one of the first requirements under administrative law. So for instance, if it is a non-state private property and the state wants to step into that particular picture, it has to say, I'm doing so under this power. I'm doing so because there is a specific circumstance that warrants it. I want to do so to achieve a particular end, and I will finish this in a certain time period. None of these things have ever been satisfied by the Tamil Nadu HRC government. Okay, all this litigation ultimately comes to a head. And on 6th of January 2014, in the judgment known as Subramania Swamy versus so-and-so, the Supreme Court comes out with a very clear verdict saying, this is a denominational institution. You cannot supersede or take over control in the name of setting the house in order. And this is what you've been doing. So please vacate the picture, get out of the picture. This happens in 2014. Please note, one of the things that the Supreme Court notes in the judgment is, you were supposed to come out with specific rules since 1959 to show what are the circumstances in which executive officers can be appointed. Can you guess when the rules actually were notified? November 2015, after the Supreme Court's verdict of 2014. Today, you're in 2023, and those who've been following what's been happening with the Chidambaram temple over the last 7 years will tell you, state governments have tried to, if I would say, extract revenge from this temple for having succeeded in the Supreme Court.
How does this matter proceed? Because there is only a legal solution to it. Politically, there is no solution right now. The legal solution has to be in the top court of the country, because the Supreme Court passed the ruling in 2014, and what is happening is in gross violation, as you said, Correct, of the court orders. So who takes this story forward to the Supreme Court?
So I was
willing to represent it.
Of course. And I'm certainly in communication with the people who represent their interests on the ground. I will certainly bat for this community no matter what, no matter how politically incorrect it gets. I have embraced all sorts of labels and certificates that have come my way, so I have no problems whatsoever. I'm past caring for any of these. I don't give up on the political aspect for one or two reasons. You know this, Anand, that over the last 5 to 6 years, temple control and relinquishment of state control over temples has gained traction like never before. So this is no more an issue with respect to Tamil Nadu. This is an issue that applies across the board, regardless of who's in power. I don't think any party in this country can actually say confidently that it has done justice to Hindus when it comes to this particular issue. Those who tried to play with the Sabarimala temple were scared of the political consequences and they were forced to change their position in court. Okay? And this is hardcore left, CPIM. Okay? And there's a saying in Tamil, which is, if you touch Shiva's property, it will lead to destruction of your lineage. That is our belief as Saivites. And I'm a proud Saivite. So I dare you to touch this property again. And let's see if the law of karma doesn't set itself in action.